There are truths most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Uncomfortable truths. Truths that challenge everything you've been told, everything you've believed, everything you've built your identity around. And the reason people avoid these truths isn't because they're complicated or hard to understand. People avoid them because accepting them requires change, real change. The kind of change that dismantles the comfortable lies you've been living with. But here's what I've learned. The truths that make you most uncomfortable are the exact truths that will set you free. They're uncomfortable precisely because they're trying to break you out of a prison you didn't even know you were in. And in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to share 10 of these truths with you. Not to make you feel bad, not to depress you, but to liberate you. Because on the other side of these uncomfortable truths is a freedom you can't even imagine right now. So before we begin, I need you to do something. Take a breath, open your mind, and be willing to feel uncomfortable. Because discomfort is just growth trying to happen. Ready? Let's begin. Truth number 1. Nobody is coming to save you. This is the first uncomfortable truth. And for many people, it's the hardest one to accept. You're waiting. Maybe you don't realize you're waiting, but you are. You're waiting for the right person to come along and complete you. You're waiting for the perfect opportunity to fall into your lap. You're waiting for circumstances to align. You're waiting for someone to give you permission, to validate your dreams, to tell you you're ready. You're waiting to be discovered, to be chosen, to be saved. And I need you to hear this with compassion, but also with clarity. Nobody is coming. There is no knight in shining armor. There is no perfect mentor who's going to hand you the blueprint. There is no magical moment when everything suddenly becomes easy. The cavalry isn't coming over the hill. You are the cavalry. This truth is uncomfortable because it means you have to take full responsibility for your life. You can't blame your parents anymore, even though they did mess you up in some ways. You can't blame your circumstances, even though they're difficult. You can't blame the economy, the system, your past, your trauma, your bad luck. Because the moment you realize nobody is coming to save you is the moment you discover you have the power to save yourself. And yes, you'll have help along the way. Yes, you'll have teachers and guides and supporters, but they're not coming to save you. They're coming to help you save yourself. There's a difference. One keeps you dependent. The other makes you powerful. So stop waiting. Stop looking outside yourself for rescue. The person you've been waiting for is you. The moment you've been waiting for is now. And the life you've been dreaming about. It begins the second you accept this uncomfortable truth. Let me be clear about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying your pain isn't real. I'm not saying difficult things haven't happened to you. I'm not saying you should just choose happiness and bypass your genuine struggles. What I'm saying is this: there's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Pain is what happens when life happens. Loss, disappointment, heartbreak, failure, illness, death. These are painful and they're part of being human. But suffering is what happens when you resist the pain, when you argue with reality, when you tell yourself stories about what the pain means about you, about your worth, about your future. Most of your suffering comes from the story you're telling yourself, not from what actually happened. You didn't just lose the job. You lost the job, and then you told yourself you're a failure. You'll never succeed. You're not good enough. Your life is over. You didn't just go through a breakup. You went through a breakup, and then you told yourself you're unlovable. You'll die alone. You wasted the best years of your life. You'll never find love again. The event was painful. The story created the suffering. And the most uncomfortable part of this truth is that it means you're creating most of your own misery. Not all of it. Not the initial pain, but the ongoing suffering. That's self-inflicted. And you have more control over it than you think. What would happen if you felt the pain without the story? If you allowed yourself to hurt without making it mean something catastrophic about who you are or what your future holds? What if you could experience disappointment without declaring yourself a disappointment? What if you could feel sadness without becoming a sad person? This truth is uncomfortable because it strips away the victim identity. It's easier to believe you're suffering because of external circumstances beyond your control. It's harder to acknowledge that you're suffering because you're choosing to stay in patterns of thought that create suffering. But it's also more empowering because if you're creating the suffering, you can also stop creating it. You think your comfort zone is keeping you safe. You think it's protecting you. And in some ways, it is. It's protecting you from uncertainty, from risk, from the possibility of failure or rejection or embarrassment. But you know what else it's protecting you from? Growth, expansion, evolution, the full expression of who you're capable of becoming. Your comfort zone is killing you slowly, not in a dramatic way. You won't even notice it happening. But year after year, you'll become a smaller version of yourself. You'll dream smaller dreams. You'll take smaller risks. You'll accept smaller results. And one day you'll wake up and realize you've lived a small life. Not because you weren't capable of more, but because you chose comfort over courage. And here's the really uncomfortable part. Every single thing you want is outside your comfort zone. Every single thing. The relationship you desire. It requires vulnerability you've been avoiding. The career you dream about. It requires risks you're not willing to take. The confidence you wish you had. It's on the other side of doing things that scare you. The freedom you crave. It's waiting for you beyond the familiar patterns you keep repeating. You already know this. You know that growth happens at the edge of discomfort. You know that nothing changes if nothing changes. But knowing it and living it are two completely different things. And the truth is, most people will choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven every single time. They'll stay in the dead end job The toxic relationship, the limiting belief system, the city they hate, the version of themselves they've outgrown, because at least it's familiar. But you're not most people. If you were, you wouldn't be here right now, watching this, opening yourself to uncomfortable truths. So, I'm asking you, what would you do if you weren't afraid? What would you try if you knew you couldn't fail? Who would you become if you stopped playing small? The answer to those questions is who you're meant to be. And the only thing standing between you and that version of yourself is your addiction to comfort. Break the addiction. Choose growth, because a comfortable life is rarely a meaningful one. I know, this one's heavy, but stay with me, because this uncomfortable truth is also the most liberating one. You are going to die. Maybe in 60 years, maybe in 6 months, maybe tomorrow. You have no idea when, and neither do I. But it's going to happen. Your time here is limited, finite, precious, and yet you're living like you have forever. You're postponing your dreams. You're staying silent when you have something to say. You're tolerating situations that drain your soul. You're saying someday and eventually, and when the time is right. But here's the truth, the time is never right. And someday is not a day of the week, and eventually turns into never more often than it turns into now. If you knew you had 1 year left to live, would you stay in that relationship that makes you feel small? Would you keep that job that crushes your spirit? Would you waste another second caring what people think? Would you hold back your love, your art, your voice, your truth? Would you postpone joy? Would you choose comfort over meaning? No, you wouldn't. You'd live with intention. You'd love with your whole heart. You'd take the risks. You'd have the conversations. You'd create the things. You'd show up as exactly who you are. You'd stop pretending and start being. Because when death is close enough to feel, suddenly everything becomes clear. Suddenly, you know what matters and what doesn't. But here's what most people don't realize. Death is always that close. You're always 1 year, 1 month, 1 moment away. The only difference is whether you're aware of it or not. This truth is uncomfortable because it confronts you with the reality of your own mortality and the ways you're wasting your limited time. But it's also liberating because it cuts through all the nonsense, all the drama, the pettiness, the perfectionism, the people pleasing, the fear. It all becomes irrelevant when you truly understand that your days are numbered. So live like it. Not in a reckless way, but in an intentional way. Every day is a gift you're not guaranteed tomorrow. What are you doing with it? Who are you loving? What are you creating? How are you showing up? Because one day it will be too late. Don't let that day be filled with regret. This one hurts because you think the people who love you want the best for you. And on a surface level, they do. But what they really want is for you to stay the same. Why? Because your change requires their change. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your transformation threatens the dynamic you've had. When you start setting boundaries, The people who benefited from you having none will call you selfish. When you start prioritizing yourself, the people who got used to you abandoning yourself will call you self-centered. When you start speaking your truth, the people who preferred your silence will call you difficult. When you start reaching for more, the people who settled will call you unrealistic. This isn't malicious. Most of the time, it's unconscious. People are invested in you staying the same because it allows them to stay the same. Your old self was comfortable for them. Your new self requires them to adjust. And most people resist change, even when it's someone else's. Your family has a role for you. Your friends have expectations of you. Your partner has a version of you they fell in love with. And when you outgrow those roles, exceed those expectations, or evolve beyond that version, it creates discomfort for everyone. And here's the really uncomfortable truth. You're going to have to disappoint people to become who you're meant to be. You're going to have to let people down. You're going to have to be misunderstood. You're going to lose relationships. Not all of them, but some of them. The ones that were based on who you were, not who you're becoming. This is painful, but it's necessary, because you can't shrink yourself to make others comfortable and simultaneously expand into your potential. You can't play small so others don't feel threatened and also live your purpose. You can't stay who you were just because it's what people expect and become who you're meant to be. Some people will grow with you. Some people will celebrate your evolution. Those are your people. But some won't. They'll guilt you, shame you, or distance themselves. And as hard as it is, you have to let them. Because your loyalty is to your soul's evolution, not to other people's comfort with who you used to be. You don't need another book. You don't need another course. You don't need another podcast, another video, another guru, another sign from the universe. You already know. Deep down, in that quiet place you keep avoiding, you already know exactly what you need to do. You know you need to leave that relationship. You know you need to start that business. You know you need to have that conversation. You know you need to set that boundary. You know you need to forgive that person. You know you need to forgive yourself. You know you need to stop the behavior. You know you need to make the change. You already know, but you keep looking for permission, for validation, for more information, for the perfect moment, for a guarantee it will work out. You keep consuming content about transformation instead of actually transforming. You keep learning about change instead of actually changing. And this is the most uncomfortable truth of all, because it means you're the one stopping you. Not lack of knowledge, not lack of resources, not lack of opportunity. You, your fear, your resistance, your addiction to the familiar, your need for certainty, your perfectionism, your people-pleasing. You. The answer you're seeking isn't out there. It's in here. The clarity you're waiting for isn't coming from someone else. It's already inside you, whispering, begging you to listen. But you keep drowning it out with noise, with business, with distraction, with more and more consumption of information you don't actually need. What if you stopped? What if you got quiet? What if you listened to that voice that's been trying to guide you all along? What if you trusted yourself? What if you acted on what you already know? The uncomfortable truth is that you're not stuck because you don't know what to do. You're stuck because you're not doing what you know. And no amount of information will change that. Only action will. Only courage will. Only commitment will. So stop seeking. Start doing. You already know. Now act like it. You don't want to hear this. I know you don't. Because it's so much easier to blame external circumstances for where you are. It's easier to point to your childhood, your trauma, your lack of opportunities, your bad luck, the unfairness of the system. And yes, all of those things are real. All of those things impact you, but they don't determine you. Because for every person who came from difficulty and stayed stuck, there's someone who came from the same difficulty and created something beautiful. For every person who used their circumstances as an excuse, there's someone who used them as fuel. The difference isn't the circumstances, it's the choices. You are where you are because of the choices you've made. The choice to stay or leave. The choice to try or quit. The choice to believe you can or believe you can't. The choice to take responsibility or blame others. The choice to grow or stay comfortable. The choice to act or wait. And the most uncomfortable part of this truth is that if your choices created your current reality, then different choices will create a different reality, which means you have more power than you think. And with power comes responsibility. You can't be a victim and be empowered at the same time. You have to choose. Now, before you hear this as blame, hear this: taking responsibility for your life is not the same as blaming yourself for your life. Responsibility means recognizing that regardless of what happened to you, you get to choose what happens next. It means acknowledging that while you didn't choose your starting point, you do choose your direction. This truth strips away the excuses. It removes the safety of victimhood. It demands that you step into your power. And that's uncomfortable because it's easier to feel powerless. It's easier to say, I can't, than to admit, I won't. It's easier to blame circumstances than to change them. But easy doesn't set you free. Truth does. And the truth is, your life is your responsibility. Not your parents, not your partners, not the government's, not the universe's, yours. And when you fully accept that, when you stop pointing fingers and start making different choices, everything changes. You've been running, maybe not physically, but emotionally. You've been running from your pain, your grief, your anger, your shame, your fear. You've been numbing it with work, with food, with Netflix, with scrolling, with shopping, with substances, with business, with anything that keeps you from actually feeling what's inside you. And you think you're protecting yourself. You think if you just don't think about it, if you just stay busy enough, distracted enough, positive enough, it'll go away. But it doesn't go away. It just goes deeper. It settles into your body. It shows up in your relationships. It manifests in your patterns. It whispers through your anxiety and screams through your breakdowns. You can't think your way out of what you need to feel your way through. You can't spiritual bypass your healing. You can't affirm away your trauma. You can't meditate your way around the grief. You have to go through it. You have to feel it. All of it. The rage, the sorrow, the terror, the heartbreak. You have to let it move through you. And this is deeply uncomfortable. Because feeling your feelings is scary. What if they overwhelm you? What if you fall apart and can't put yourself back together? What if the pain is too much? What if you get stuck there? But here's the truth. The only way out is through. The feelings you're avoiding are the ones running your life from the shadows. The pain you're resisting is the pain that's keeping you stuck. The emotions you won't feel are the ones creating the numbness, the disconnection, the sense that something's missing. When you allow yourself to actually feel, something miraculous happens. The feelings move. They process. They complete their cycle. And on the other side of that feeling is freedom. On the other side of grief is peace. On the other side of anger is clarity. On the other side of fear is courage. But you have to be willing to feel it, to sit with it, to let it be there without trying to fix it, solve it, or make it go away. You have to trust that your feelings won't destroy you. They're just energy trying to move through. Let them. Your ego thinks it's protecting you. It thinks it's keeping you safe. But really, it's keeping you small. Your ego is the voice that tells you you're not ready, that you're not good enough, that you should wait, that you should play it safe, that you should care what people think, that you should be perfect before you begin. Your ego is invested in your survival, not your growth. It values safety over expansion, familiar over transformational, comfortable over meaningful, and it will do everything in its power to keep you exactly where you are. Every time you try to grow, your ego will resist. It'll create fear. It'll manufacture doubt. It'll remind you of every time you failed. It'll paint catastrophic pictures of what could go wrong. It'll tell you you're being unrealistic, irresponsible, selfish, crazy. It'll disguise itself as intuition, as wisdom, as common sense. And the most uncomfortable truth is that you can't get rid of your ego. It's part of being human. But you can learn to recognize it. You can learn to hear its voice and choose not to follow it. You can thank it for trying to protect you and then do the thing anyway. Your ego will fight every upgrade, every expansion, every evolution. And if you listen to it, you'll stay stuck forever. You'll play small forever. You'll live a safe, comfortable, deeply unfulfilling life. But if you learn to witness your ego without being controlled by it, if you can recognize its fear as evidence of growth rather than evidence of danger, everything changes. You become free to act despite the fear, free to grow despite the resistance, free to become who you're meant to be despite your ego's protests. So stop letting your ego drive. Put your higher self in the driver's seat. Let your soul guide you, not your fear, and watch what becomes possible. This is the final uncomfortable truth. and it's the one that ties everything together. You can't create a new life with your old self. You can't manifest a different reality with the same consciousness that created your current one. You can't step into your next level while clinging to who you've been. The life you want, the relationship, the career, the inner peace, the abundance, the freedom. It all requires a version of you that doesn't exist yet. A version that thinks differently, believes differently, acts differently, shows up differently. A version that has healed what you haven't healed, that has released what you're still holding, that has become what you're still becoming. And this is uncomfortable because it means you have to let yourself die. Not literally, but the version of you that you've been, the identity you've built, the person everyone knows. You have to let that version die so a new version can be born. And death is uncomfortable, even when it's the death of what no longer serves you, even when it's the death of your limitations, your stories, your old patterns. It still feels like loss. It still requires grief. It still demands that you walk through the unknown. Most people aren't willing to do this. They want their life to change, but they want to stay the same. They want different results while maintaining the same thoughts, the same beliefs, the same behaviors. And it doesn't work that way. You can't become new while staying old. So the question is, are you willing to become who you need to become? Are you willing to let go of who you've been? Are you willing to step into the discomfort of transformation? Are you willing to be misunderstood during the process? Are you willing to not have all the answers? Are you willing to trust the becoming? Because on the other side of this uncomfortable truth is everything you've been dreaming of. The life you want is real. It's possible. It's waiting for you. But it's waiting for the version of you that's willing to grow into it. So here we are. 10 uncomfortable truths. 10 invitations to freedom. Not comfortable freedom. Real freedom. The kind that comes from facing what you've been avoiding, accepting what you've been resisting, and choosing growth over comfort. You don't have to accept all 10 truths today. Pick one. Just one that hit you differently. One that made you squirm a little. One that you know in your bones is true even though you don't want it to be. And start there. Sit with it. Let it work on you. Let it change you. Because these truths, they're not meant to depress you. They're meant to liberate you. And discomfort is just the price of admission to a life that's actually worth living. A life of authenticity, of courage, of meaning, of growth, of freedom. You're ready. You've always been ready. The only question is, are you willing? Are you willing to be uncomfortable? Are you willing to face the truth? Are you willing to choose freedom? I think you are. In fact, I know you are. Because you're still here. And that means something. It means you're one of the rare ones. The ones who are willing to do the work. The ones who choose truth over comfort. The ones who are committed to becoming. So take these truths with you. Let them simmer. Let them challenge you. Let them change you. And watch what happens when you finally stop avoiding what's true and start living in alignment with it. Your freedom is waiting. Not someday, right now. On the other side of these uncomfortable truths, go find it.